A very good afternoon to one and all present out there. Uh, Hope you all are doing good. And today we have with us Dr. Vinita Bora. She has done her MPT from SB Nita in pediatrics. She is very enthusiastic young speaker. Maybe she's her first webinar. So she's very enthusiastic, and you can ask anything if you have any problem, if you have any doubt, you can clear everything out there. So I welcome her on this platform webinar. Welcome Bindaba and all the participants out there. Okay, hope you like this webinar. And then if you have any query and all, you can ask freely. So you can put your questions on the chat box and all. So okay, we can start now.
Okay. So thank you, Haltotin, for inviting me for sharing few knowledge with you all day. So I'm very beginner speaker as a speaker. So I know something, you know something. Okay. So we'll share together our knowledge. Okay. So today my topic is early diagnosis and role of physiotherapy in children with cerebral palsy. Okay, so let's move on to first in history part. Okay, so in 1860, cerebral
Uh,
palsy, also known as cerebral paralysis.
Bindaba, ডাঙৰ ক'ব নেকি? এই
Okay,
speaker sorry.
is it okay?
Is it okay now, guys? Is it loud now?
Is it okay?
Okay, okay.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, may I continue?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so in 1860, cerebral palsy, also known as cerebral paralysis or little disease. So after an English surgeon wrote the first medical description, and in 1843, the first clinical report of cerebral palsy was given by William John Little, and the cerebral palsy term was given by the Sir William Osler, and the complete description of cerebral palsy is given by Sigmund Freud. Okay, this is all about the history part of cerebral palsy. Now we move to the what is cerebral palsy. Okay, so first we see the definition of cerebral palsy. So we all know cerebral means concerning the brain, and palsy means paralysis or inability to move. Okay, so there are two definitions given in 20th century. According to best definition, it is a disorder of movement and posture due to a defect or lesion of the immature brain. So, what is immature brain? When the baby is born and out of the uterus, he begins to do some movement. Okay, he begins to do any kind of movement. Okay, but what happens in immature brain due to damage in during prenatal period or after the birth? So due to damage to the brain, the defect will be in movement and posture. So Beck's definition, it is a disorder of the movement and posture due to a defect or lesion of the immature brain. So the next definition is given, which is given by Marx et al. They have given it is an umbrella term covering a group of non-progressive but often sensing motor impairment syndrome secondary to lesion or anomalies of the brain arising in the early stages of development. So he state that it is an umbrella term covering a group of disorder which is non-progressive. So what means by non-progressive? So once the sense occur, it will not sensing. Okay, but often sensing with motor impairment syndrome, which is uh, developed in during perinatal or postnatal period. So this is the latest definition given in 2004. Cerebral palsy describes a group of permanent disorder of the development of movement and posture causing activity limitation that are attributed to non-progressive disturbances that occurred in the developing fetal or infant brain. The motor disorders of cerebral palsy are often accompanied by disturbances of sensation, perception, cognition, communication, and behavior by epilepsy and by secondary musculoskeletal problems. So, if you see the is definition, Okay. If you see the is word of this definition, you will hear that um, it describes the all the possibility causing the cerebral palsy. So they have given it is a permanent disorder. Yes, it is a permanent disorder of the developmental movement and posture, and uh, effect in movement and posture, it causes the activity limitation. The child cannot do any activity, okay, with full activity limitation is there, and they are attributed to non-progressive disturbance, okay, again that occurred in the developing fetal or infant brain. So the brain injured, maybe it may be in perinatal period, in during the delivery time or after the delivery period. The motor disorder of the cerebral palsy are often accompanied by disturbances of sensation, perception, cognition, communication, and behavior. Yes, motor impairment will be there, but with motor impairment, associated factor will be perception, cognition, communication, and also behavior. Okay, so this definition is the latest definition given by the international workshop held in Bethesda, Maryland. Okay, so next we okay, next we what happens the slide. Okay, so cerebral palsy mainly affect movement, balance, and posture. Okay, in so causes of cerebral palsy, CP causes during birth, and it may be causes after birth, during birth, or before birth. And now we coming to the classification of cerebral palsy. So there are 4 types of classification has been given on the basis of neurological deficit, on the anatomical classification, on the basis of clinical classification, on the basis of degree of severity. So on the basis of neurological deficit, so we found it is pyramidal, extrapyramidal, and mixed. And under pyramidal tract involvement, we found spastic type of cerebral palsy. Under extrapyramidal involvement, we found dyskinetic group of cerebral palsy and ataxic cerebral palsy. Under and that is one is mixed, that is maybe pyramidal or extrapyramidal, and it will include both pyramidal and extrapyramidal. So here we can see this is pyramidal. Yes, the spastic cerebral palsy is and pyramidal is mainly from the motor area of the cortex. Okay, so due to the pyramidal trait involvement, we found spastic type of cerebral palsy, and in extrapyramidal mainly the basal ganglia will be involved. Basal ganglia whose main work is movement. Okay, due to extrapyramidal lesion there will be movement problem, and we found dyskinetic group of cerebral palsy and ataxic group of cerebral palsy. So on the basis of anatomical classification, we found hemiplegic cerebral palsy, diplegia cerebral palsy, quadriplegia, triplegia, and monoplegia. This triplegia and monoplegia is quite rare. In hemiplegia, we all know upper and lower extremity on one side of the body will be involved. In diplegia, 4 extremity, legs more affected than the arms. And in quadriplegia, 4 extremities plus the trunk, neck, and face also involved. And in triplegia, both lower extremity and one upper extremity involvement will be present. So this is the clinical classification. Previously, we have seen that is extrapyramidal and one is pyramidal. So what happens in pyramidal? We found spastic type of cerebral palsy. Yes, the lesion will be in cortex area, and when the lesion will be in cortex area, cerebral palsy, we Okay, the cerebral palsy is the result of intracranial pathology which falls in three groups: lesion of the motor cortex, and the lesion in the basal ganglia, and lesion in the cerebellum. So when the lesion is in cortex area, we found spastic type of cerebral palsy. When lesion will be in basal ganglia, we found athetosis type of cerebral palsy or dyskinetic group of cerebral palsy. When the lesion is in cerebellum, we found a ataxic group of cerebral palsy. Okay, so next we'll see on the basis of degree of severity. So first one is mild cerebral palsy. In 20% of cases, we see the mild cerebral palsy cases. So they don't require any self-help for assisting their impaired ambulatory capacity. So next we see the moderate cerebral palsy. 50% of child we see moderate cerebral palsy, and they require self-help for assisting their impaired ambulation capacity. And last one is severe cerebral palsy. 30% in 30% cases we see the severe cerebral palsy cases. They are totally dependent on others for their ADL. So this is the all the types you can cover up. So just brush up. First we have see pyramidal. Okay, under pyramidal we have spastic cerebral palsy, and we have extrapyramidal, which under extrapyramidal we have dyskinetic group of cerebral palsy and ataxia group of cerebral palsy. Okay, so first on regional informant, and this is the total body informant. On the regional informant we found the spastic cerebral palsy, and on the total body informant we see the dyskinetic group of cerebral palsy, attenuated group of cerebral palsy, or ataxic group of cerebral palsy. So this is the whole scenario of the classification of cerebral palsy. So now we'll see the what is spasticity or what is spastic cerebral palsy. So before going to spastic cerebral palsy, let's talk about what is spasticity. So we do any movement, okay? So we do elbow flexion, elbow extension, hip internal rotation, any movement we do. So we found one physiological resistance when we do any movement of the joint. We found and the physiological movement, so which is known as muscle tone. So what is spasticity? So spasticity is the increase in the physiological muscle tone. Okay, so spasticity is velocity dependent. Yes, it is velocity dependent. So the first you do movement and spasticity will be high. So in spasticity, how it may affect on cerebral palsy children's, one thing, for the spasticity, cerebral palsy have one more effective and effective also there. So with the help of spasticity, the child can stand. With the help of extensor spasticity, with the increasing spasticity, extensor spasticity, child can bear weight in the standing position. Okay, see once or she want to do any movement with the lower limb, with the help of extensor spasticity, she can bear weight in standing, and she can initiate the walking movement. So adverse effect also there. Yes, adverse effect is more than the good effect. Okay, adverse effect is like this. When the physiological muscle tone is increased, there will be spasticity. Okay, so when the spasticity is increased, the muscle, okay, the shortening of the muscle will be occur. So what is shortening of the muscle? It will develop the contracture. Okay, after developing the contracture, it will defect the shortening of the muscle. Contracture will be due to contracture, it will develop later on deformity, and then due to deformity occur, the child cannot do any movement particular that joint. So what is spastic cerebral palsy? We can measure the spasticity by mass scale. 0, no increase in muscle tone. We do elbow flexion. Yes, we found some physiological muscle tone, but there is no increase in tone. So we'll give as 0. That is no increase in muscle tone. We all know these things, but I just explained. And what is 1? Slight increase in muscle tone manifested by catch and release or by minimal resistance at the end range of motion when the part is moved in flexion or extension, abduction or adduction, etc. So 0, we know there will be no physiological increasing the physiological muscle tone. 1. So first we do the elbow flexion. You will we do the elbow flexion. So okay, first we see the catch and then release. Okay, after that we will don't feel any resistance. Okay, then we grade as 1. So next is 1 plus, that is slight increase in muscle tone manifests by kicks followed by minimal resistance throughout the remainder. So less than half of the range of motion you will found a spasticity. There will be no release first kicks and there will be no release first kicks, and after the less than half of the range of motion you will found the increase in physiological muscle tone, that is 1 plus. And what is 2? There will be more marked increase in muscle tone through the most of the range of motion, but the affected part is easily moved. So we have done elbow flexion again. Okay, when we do elbow flexion, so there will be no catch, there will be no release. Okay, we just do the elbow flexion movement, but from the beginning of the range to the end range of motion, we will found this spasticity, but the movement is possible and the affected part is easily moved. Then what happens in 3? There will be considerable increase in muscle tone. Basic movement is difficult. So you're trying to do elbow flexion, but but spasticity will prevent you to do the elbow flexion. So there will be, so I'm elbow flexion I am doing. Okay, so while I'm doing the basic movement is very much difficult, you cannot do the full movement at all. And what happens in the affected part is rigid in flexion or extension or abduction or adduction. Movement is not possible at all. It will be rigid in either flexion or extension. Okay, so till now all the clear about spasticity of cerebral palsy and how can we measure the spasticity? Yes, anyone can answer? Yes, you can use your chat box also.
Yeah, if you have any doubt or if you have any questions, you can ask. Okay, you can unmute yourself and then you can ask, or you can type in the chat box also. So
Okay, no doubt. Okay, then we move to the different types of spastic cerebral palsy. Okay, in spastic cerebral palsy, there will be hemiplegia. One side of the body is affected. The arm is usually more involved than the leg. And what is diplegia? There will be involvement in upper body also, lower limb also. Both upper limb and lower limb involvement is there, but lower limb is more affected than the upper limb. And what happens in quadriplegia? All 4 limbs are involved, and involvement of the face also there. And in monoplegia only one limb is affected, usually and one arm. And triplegia 3 limbs are involved, usually both arm and a leg. So right leg and yeah, right leg or left leg will be involvement is seen in spastic type of cerebral palsy. So I am not going to discuss anything about monoplegia and triplegia because this is very rarely we are seeing. So first we'll see the hemiplegic spastic cerebral palsy. So hemiplegic children have involvement of the arm and the leg on one side of the body. The upper extremity is more severely involved than the lower extremity. Spastic hemiplegia constitute 20% of cases with spastic cerebral palsy. Communication is unimpaired most of the time. You can communicate with spastic hemiplegic cerebral palsy better than the any other types of cerebral palsy. Seizure, learning and behavioral problem also there, but it is very rare, but it lessly affected. And the functional prognosis is good compared to the other types of cerebral palsy. Yes, functional prognosis will be definitely, it will be good because only half of the body is involved in spastic hemiplegic cerebral palsy. And all hemiplegic children learn to walk by the age of the 3. This is the all the findings are given by the various research study. So they become independent in the activities of daily living. The mode of evolution is independent. And seizure, mild mental retardation, learning difficulties, and behavioral disturbances may complicate the management and integration into the society. So, with association of seizure, mild mental retardation, they all this affect in prognosis of the spastic hemiplegic cerebral palsy. So, So we are physio. We mainly deal with physical problem. Okay, I'm not going to discuss any behavioral problem and mental. So I'm just going to discuss physiological problem. Then that is musculoskeletal problem in hemiplegia. So if you see a hemiplegic cerebral palsy children's, the shoulder will be adducted and internally rotated, elbow will be pronated and flexion, and wrist will be flexion, thumb up flexion, and thumb in palm. Okay, then hip again it is flexion and internal rotation, knee will be in flexion, ankle will be in plantar flexion, and foot it may be seen in varus deformity. Yeah, this is all the attitude of the limb and posture while the child in standing position or while the child in supine position. Yes, in hemiplegia, the picture, your hemiplegia on right side, there will be hip and knee contracture and talipes equinox. We'll come to that. So, and astereognosis may be present. So, that is inability to identify object by the touch. So, sensory involvement is there in hemiplegic cerebral palsy. Okay, so what are the deformities there? What postures will be seen in foot? That is space equinox. It may be static or dynamic. Okay, and one is space varus, that is increased inversion. Okay, first we'll discuss about the space equinox. Okay, the child come to you, the parents coming to you to your clinic. They come with chief complaint that the child is walking, but child is walking with tiptoe. So this is like this equinox deformity. It is static. So when it is static, you can do dorsiflexion passively. Okay, you can do the dorsiflexion fully, but when it is dynamic, you will see the pes equinox deformity in stance phase also, in resting position also. And what is space varus? There will be increased inversion. Okay, suppose this is my ankle joint. It's not my ankle joint, but suppose this is my ankle joint. Okay, so inversion is increased. So when I inverted my ankle joint, there will be, so in foot on the support lateral border is there. Okay, so the child will mainly weight bearing on the lateral border of the foot. That is increased inversion of the ankle joint, to which we see the pes varus deformity, and with increased plantar flexion of the ankle joint, we see pes equinox deformity. Till now, any doubt is there? Yeah, are you feeling bored? Yes.
If you have any questions, guys, you can ask in chat box. I think everyone is awake.
Okay. Please let me know. Okay, if you feel any doubt or any boring. Okay.
You can ask.
So next we'll go to the knee joint. Yes, the pictures you have seen. There the knee is in hyperextended. Okay, this is called genu recurvatum, and this is the increased knee flexion. Okay, so in hemiplegic cerebral palsy, we mainly seen genu recurvatum and the knee flexion deformity with okay, increased ankle plantar flexion, that is equinox. Okay, so knee flexion deformity we see genu recurvatum deformity, and one is there that is called stiff knee. So what is stiff knee? Stiff knee, you will in resting position there will be no deformity. In posture also you will not see any deformity in the knee joint. There will be no knee flexion deformity. But when the child walks in during swing phase, you will see the knee flexion, that is known as stiff knee, and it is less than 30 degree. Okay, the knee flexion will be less than 30 degree. So when knee flexion deformity, there may be the posterior capsule of hamstring is tight, and in genu recurvatum there is maybe the rectus femoris muscle is spasticity is maybe there. So we move to the hip joint. Yes, in hip joint, the child, when the child is standing position, there will be flexion, adduction, and internal rotation of the hip joint. There is internal rotation of the femur, which may lead to subluxation of the hip joint, and limb length discrepancy also seen in spastic hemiplegic cerebral palsy. Picture you can see there is okay, this limb is hemiplegic cerebral palsy limb. So this is internally rotated, adducted, okay, slight hip flexion is there, and they mainly seen in toeing. What is in toeing? The toe will be inwards. So you can see here the toe is inward, so that is called in toeing gait. And the limb length discrepancy, yes, obviously one side is affected. So if we one-sided of affected, when the child will be standing, there will be limb length discrepancy, and there may develop the scoliosis because that is the lateral curvature. Okay, here you can see clearly that is scoliosis is developed. So now we see the gait pattern. Okay, so there are 4 patterns of gait pattern here we have seen in hemiplegic CP. So first one is foot drop in swing. So due to equinus, base equinus deformity, foot drop, toe walking will be seen. Okay, why? Because due to weak tibialis anterior or adequate gastrocolius muscle. And the one and next is foot drop in swing and genu-recurvatum. Both foot drop in swing and genu-recurvatum also we see in during the gait cycle of the child. There may be due to weak tibialis anterior and short gastrocolius again, and in stiffness and knee flexion deformity caused by persistent knee flexion decrease and knee motion in swing. Okay, and then there will be hip adduction, flexion, and internal femoral rotation, which lead to in-toeing gait. Okay, so hemiplegic gait is characterized by pes equinus deformity. Here you can clearly see the pes equinus deformity. There is genu-recurvatum also there, that is hyperextended of the knee joint. There is maybe the internal femoral rotation, hip and adduction, which may lead to in-toeing gait. So this is all about the spastic hemiplegic cerebral palsy. So now we move to the spastic diplegic cerebral palsy. Yes, in spastic diplegic cerebral palsy, there will be involvement of upper and there will be involvement is lower body also. But lower body is more involvement than the upper body. So diplegia is defined as gross motor involvement of the lower and fine motor involvement of the upper extremity. Diplegia constitutes 50% of the spastic cerebral palsy population, and diplegic children have normal mental function and can communicate without difficulty. Their oromotor and gastrointestinal functions are normal. So mainly all the others, mental function, communication, oromotor and gastrointestinal, all are normal in spastic diplegic cerebral palsy. Main problems in motor, okay, the lower part, which is needed for walking, for gait training. So yes, they have walking difficulty, they have balance problem, they have muscle weakness, they have spasticity, and due to spasticity later it may causes deformity also, for which child have difficulty in walking and extending knee joint. Yes, due to hip flexion, they have difficulty in extending the knee joint. Okay. So musculoskeletal problem in diplegic cerebral palsy, mainly we found the Krause gait. So what is Krause gait? There will be hip flexion, there will be knee flexion, and there will be ankle dorsiflexion. So just remind one thing, okay, just remember one thing, just with knee flexion associates always it will be ankle dorsiflexion. Just one part is knee flexion and one part is ankle flexion, plantar flexion, no. Okay, always it is knee flexion associated with ankle dorsiflexion. Mainly the Krause gait is found in diplegic cerebral palsy. We found in due to pes equinus deformity, again it is increase in ankle plantar flexion, and which may lead to equinus, and due to femoral internal rotation, adduction or internal rotation of the hip joint, it may lead to femoral anteversion or in-toeing gait also. Yes, so hip adduction and internal rotation, knee will be in flexion, ankle extension, equinus or valgus or varus deformity. Stiffness, genu-recurvatum, and Krause gait is seen in diplegic cerebral palsy. No need to explain because we have already explained in hemiplegic spastic cerebral palsy. Yes, this is the mostly seen in diplegic cerebral palsy. If you see the previous slide, wait, yes, if you see the previous slide, what happens in doing it? Okay, this in doing it, there will be only one limb is affected in hemiplegic cerebral palsy. So only one limb is affected. So there will be hip adduction, internal rotation, and intoing gait. So what happens in spastic diplegic cerebral palsy? Okay, in spastic diplegic cerebral palsy, both limb is affected, both lower limb is affected. So due to effect of both lower limb, we found okay. So there will be adduction and internal rotation of the hip joint, and we mainly see the scissoring. It look like the scissoring, okay, because both lower limb will be involved. If one limb is involved, there will be adduction and internal rotation, but it not look like as scissor. But in this type of diabetic cerebral palsy, we mainly see the scissoring gait or scissoring posture because due to adductor spasticity, this is developed. So it's all about the spastic diplegic cerebral palsy. Any doubt is there, you can ask me. If I go to previous slide, you can ask me anything if you have any problem. Otherwise, I will go continue to the next slide.
Yeah, if you have any questions, guys, you can ask. If everyone is awake, not sleeping. So, okay.
Feeling bored, no?
If no one is asking, I'm only asking one question too.
Okay.
Yeah. In case of Crouch gait, like you said
Okay.
about the flexion of knee, and also there is associated with dorsiflexion of ankle joint. So, how will be the gait pattern of this particular problem?
This you have seen the in stance when the child will be in gait cycle. Okay, first he will put the heel strike. Okay, there will be heel strike will be absent. There will be inadequate hip knee flexion. Okay, there will be inadequate hip knee flexion will be present in crouch gait. Okay. So I move to spastic quadriplegic. So quadri means four. So quadriplegia is the involvement of the neck, trunk, and all the four extremity. Again, sketches is there. Please don't do this.
Maybe the host. Okay, you can if you can do it. Okay, fine. I've stopped the screen also.
So quadriplegia is the involvement of the neck, trunk, and all the four extremities. The severe motor impairment and other signs symptoms of central nervous system dysfunction, such as cognitive impairment, seizures, speech and swallowing difficulties, also there. Next. So there is a primitive reflex persist. Okay, so you'll find a primitive reflex and associated problem also there. That is mental retardation, seizure, dysarthria or dysphagia, incontinence, hydrocephalus, deafness, and a visual impairment and gastrointestinal disorder also seen in spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy. Next. Okay. We have seen the in spastic diplegic cerebral palsy, the scissoring pattern of the posture, and mainly it seen in quadriplegic cerebral palsy because due to severe spasticity, the child will be in bedridden. There will be no movement at all in the bed, and mainly scissoring gait will be scissoring posture is seen. There will be adapter spasticity is there. There will be hip internal rotation and adduction is increase. Actually, okay, in spine there will be scoliosis and kyphotic kyphotic deformity, yes, it will be present in scoliosis and kyphosis because the child is in bedridden position. There is no movement at all, and hip it's a subluxation because the femoral anteversion and this hip subluxation and dislocation may be occur, and the knee there will be flexion deformity, and in ankle it will in plantar flexion. You can see this picture. It is the child is sitting, okay, on the bed, and his spine is look like C cup. There will be more kyphotic, and this is hyperkyphosis deformity is seen in spastic cerebral palsy. Um, and in the second picture, the guy is sitting on the sacrum, and really there is also the hyperkyphotic posture is seen due to because they have lack of tongue control. Okay, because and due to lack of tongue control and due to lack of hip flexion, they have compensated this posture, and they sit in postopelvic tilt and septal sitting also seen, and the lumbar kyphosis also seen in this type of spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy. So next, we'll move on to the dyskinetic group of cerebral palsy. In dyskinetic group of cerebral palsy, it is an extrapyramidal tract lesion where the basal ganglia will be involvement, and the basal ganglia we all know it controls the movement, and due to dyskinetic cerebral palsy, there will be fluctuating tone. It may be hypertonic or it may be hypotonic, and in with rest he appeared with low tone and high tone with movement, and low tone proximally and high tone distally. Okay, so first we'll see the dystonic group of cerebral palsy. In dystonic group of cerebral palsy, previously we have discussed about dystonia. Okay, athletic group of cerebral palsy, and one more is chorea. Okay, first we'll see the dystonia. So there will be sustained muscle contraction with frequent twisting will be present, and there will be repetitive movement, and the abdominal posture will be seen. And in athletic group of cerebral palsy, are slow, continuous, and riding movement will be present, and preventing maintenance of stable or sustained posture. In this dystonia group of cerebral palsy, they can maintain posture. Okay, if you tell a cerebral palsy child to sit, they will sit. Okay, but when he wants to do any movement and he wants to in sitting position, he can want to do any reaching movement, and there will be hypertonia. Okay, in athlete there will be slow, continuous, and riding movement will be present, and the movement appear random and repetition in body segment particular to the individual. And anti-gravity postures of the head and trunk are difficult, which attempt to move often resulting in strong, unsustained burst of cervical, lumbar, and sometimes elbow and knee extension. In a study done by Hallett and Albers, yes, so the study done by Hallett and Albers, they have mentioned that it is very much difficult to do the anti-gravity posture. And the chorea. So chorea means dance. Okay. So there will be any time brief and jerky random movement will be present. So what difference in athletic cerebral palsy and chorea? In athletic there will be slow, continuous moving, and in chorea just brief and jerky random movement is there, and difference in the duration and continuity of the movement. And there will be lack of stable posture. They cannot maintain one position, and they will just like dance. Okay, so if you see this child, okay, the child is sitting with abducted, okay, leg, and with protect look like a drunkard. Okay, so now he will walk. Okay, we'll see how he will walk. See, look. his gait pattern. He always
देखा नहीं को we weren't able to see any video.
oh,
Yeah.
not visible. I think it will not display. Okay, no problem. So here,
Screen is blackout. Your screen is blackout. You know. Wait. You just make me the host. Wait. Okay, I'll share the screen. Did you make me host?
wait.
Now is it visible? Your screen is visible.
Yeah, visible. Let's go and play that video.
Which video?
It will be that exact.
Next slide. No? Next slide.
No. Yeah, next slide. Yeah. In this slide only, the video is there. You just
Which video?
in 31. 31. Yes, this one.
No. Okay, this video. No? Yeah, source is not available because source is not available.
No
Okay,
problem. Just make me host, please. Okay, done.
Yeah, done.
Sorry, video will not play. Okay, here you can see exactly there will be wet base of white base gate is seen in ataxic type of cerebral palsy. Okay, so this is hold the if you hold a finger or toy in front of the child and ask him to touch it on the first try, the child with ataxia cannot do it. He will overshoot the target. And the intention, tremor, and jerky quality of movement will be present in ataxic cerebral palsy, as I have mentioned before. And the impairment, yes, impairment is there in visual and perceptual problem. Okay, visual you will see the nystagmus. Okay, nystagmus is also seen in ataxic group of cerebral palsy. So we have now seen we have covered all the types of cerebral palsy. So now we'll move to the diagnosis of cerebral palsy. Before going to diagnosis of cerebral palsy, we should know about the developmental milestone and primitive reflexes. So we'll go. Any confusion is there? First, we see the subjective assessment. Okay, in we'll go to diagnosis of cerebral palsy. Someone mic is
Can you mute your mic, please?
mute.
Can you mute your mic? Iftikar, can you mute your mic? Iftikar, can you mute your mic? You can proceed.
Okay, and we move on to the diagnosis of cerebral palsy. We'll go step by step in diagnosis of cerebral palsy. First, we see the subjective assessment. We'll see the observation, and we will see the examination part. So, first we see the subjective assessment. Okay, under the subjective assessment, we have to take the birth history of the child, that is prenatal history, perinatal history, and the postnatal history. Prenatal history is nothing but in during the pregnancy and during the labor or delivery time history, and during the shortly after the birth, this is postnatal history. So, what we ask the parents in during the prenatal history, will see the age of the mother, will ask about the consanguineous marriage, will ask the parents or will ask the mothers any addiction to drugs or alcohol, smoking, and any history of previous abortion, stillborn, and multiple pregnancy. And when they feel the feeling of fatal moment, because it is very important, and any history of trauma or fall, and any history of addiction to drugs, any diuretics, okay, and antidiuretics drug, okay. So you have to take all the history of from the prenatal history from the mothers, and in perinatal history we'll see the gestational age. Yes, it is very important because less than 38, before the 38 weeks of gestation period, if you deliver a baby, it will called as preterm baby. So gestational age is very important, and the place of delivery also important. But asphyxia and the history of prolonged labor, we have to ask, and we have to ask about the type of delivery and the presentation of the child and condition of the mother at the time of delivery. So, so the presentation of the child, we'll see the presentation of the child. Okay, so this is the breast presentation, and this is the vertex position. Vertex presentation. Normally, the vertex presentation is seen, but in rarely we see the breast presentation and type of delivery. So whether it is full term normal delivery or full term cesarean delivery, we have to ask this thing. And but asphyxia, yes, this umbilical cord is blocked neck, due to which the child have difficulty, and maybe the oxygen supply also may be impaired, and it may cause the brain damage. This is all about the perinatal history. And postnatal history. In postnatal history, we'll see the birth care, immediate birth care is present or not, the weight of the baby, normally 2.5 kg is the normal weight of the baby, and any history of trauma after the delivery of the baby, any history of severe jaundice, any history of fever, any history of seizure attack, any nutritional habit of the child, immunization is proper immunization have been taken or not, any infection is rubella. Okay, so we have to note down all the postnatal, perinatal history. And here, this is the jaundice, and yes, if you see the movement, okay, the posture of the child, it will be always the physiological flexion. Okay, normally after born, after 2 hours after born, we see the physiological flexion posture of the child. So we have to take the developmental history. Okay, developmental history. When we talk about developmental history, so both term is different. Okay, one is developmental and one is gross motor. One is fine motor. Both are developmental, but we are talking about the growth. So what is growth? Okay, so if I see, this is the growth of the child. Okay, and the physiological increase, net muscle increase. So child maybe this one, okay, the child height will be decreased. So this is the growth of the child, okay, which we can measure. Okay, this is the growth, but appropriate with the growth, the developmental maybe not occur. So which is seen in cerebral palsy children. The child growth is huh? Any problem?
Then continue.
Okay. So the growth is any physiological need increasing, and developmental is nothing but when the central nervous system is matured. Okay, there are primitive reflex are there. Okay, on the spinal level, brainstem, midbrain, automatic reflex. Okay, cortical level, we found the primitive reflex. With the maturation of the primitive reflex, the child did learn to do the any movement. So due to mature of the primitive reflex, the child control, head and neck control will be there, rolling will be present, sitting will be present, crawling, standing and walking will be present. And in fine motor, the hand to mouth coordination and any hand skill manipulation will be present. So we have to take the developmental history in details, though then we move to the language. Yes, we are physiotherapists, we have to take the all details. We will take the details about the language development, social behavior, family history, socio-economic, medical history and environmental history. Okay, so in language, okay, in language we'll see the any bisyllable, okay, monosyllable, one word or two word, child is any speaking difficulties there or not. Okay, we'll see in social behavior, social smile is present or not. We'll see the communication child, can the child recognize his mother. Okay, we'll see all the details about social behavior, family history, any family history of cerebral palsy. We'll see all these three. After that, most important part is observation. Okay, we do the physical assessment by the help of parents. Now we see the observation, that is very important. We'll see the posture, we'll see the behavior of the child, we'll see the everything in observation part. So in observation we can start from the sitting. When the child will come, obviously the child will be on family members lap, on sitting on a floor and sitting on a stool with feet flat on the ground. We'll see all the movement. We'll observe the child in supine position and prone position. We'll observe the child in supported standing and independent standing also. So first, when the child come to us, okay, sitting on a family member's lap, we'll see the child behavior. Okay, we'll see the child behavior, the family member support. Okay, where the hand is there. Okay, so how much support he needs. Okay, we'll see the support, the behavior. Okay, posture of the child. Okay, we'll see all the posture and behavior issue in this position. We'll see now. Next will be in sitting on a floor. Okay, when we ask a child to sit on the floor, he will mostly the spastic diplegic cerebral palsy will sit in W sitting. She will sit in between the legs. Okay, in between the legs with both hip internal rotation and adduction. Okay, this W sitting is very commonly seen in spastic diplegic cerebral palsy. It will increase more spasticity in adductor group of muscle. And when the child is sitting on the floor with long sitting, there will be plantar flex ankle. Okay, there will be some degree of knee flexion will be there. There is no not full long sitting will be present in cerebral palsy children. Okay, so because due to lack of hip knee flexion, he has to compensate. Okay, compensate with increasing the tongue flexion movement. So it will observe these things from this figure. Okay, on a sitting on a stool, so what we'll find on the sitting on a stool, the Moro reflex may be seen, may be present, and any movement is there. Okay, does he doing any movement, and how much support he needs to sit on a floor. And if you see this child, little child, he is sitting, there is hip flexion, there is knee flexion, and he's sitting, but he is sitting with trunk flexion because due to lack of trunk control, because due to lack of control trunk control, he cannot extend his trunk, so he make his position to slouch posture. Okay, so he managed to sitting. So here in supine position, so what we found in supine position, we know in supine positions, the spastic cerebral palsy, hip is internally rotated, adducted, and plantar flex is there. Okay, so there will be increasing extensor spasticity. Why? Because due to increasing extensor spasticity, child cannot lift his head from the supine position. Okay, he cannot lift his head from supine position, and he push back, and due to severe extensor spasticity, there will be cervical extension is present. Okay, in this child, the child is in supine position, there will be hip flexion, there is knee flexion, but child leg is in plantar flexion. So we have to observe all the attitude of the limbs, attitude of the posture. We have to observe. Okay, the behavior of child. Any ruling is there in supine position? Can he go to the supine to prone position? Okay, so we have to see all these things. So any upper hand lifting activity is there or not? So his head is in midline position or not? We have to observe all details in supine position. Next, we see the prone position. This is the uh, this is the child, 6-month-old baby. This is a normal child. We'll see in normal baby, what he can do, he can lift up his head, he can lift his head, he can extend his chest also. So when there will be cervical extension, trunk extension is present, and with associated with cervical extension and trunk extension, he also can lift his lower limb also. But what happens in same age group of 6-month-old baby in spastic group of cerebral palsy, his upper hand is stuck, his upper hand is stuck in under the chest, and he cannot do the reaching activity. He cannot lift his lower limb. Okay, but yes, this is supported standing position. If you see the supported standing position, we have to see. So where the support is given by the family members. Here the support is given by the family members on the trunk. Here shoulder. Okay, here also shoulder, and here she is giving the support on the pelvis part. Okay, so we have to see the support have been given by the family members, how he is standing, any equinus deformity is there, any flexion deformity is there. Okay, we have to see all details in supported standing position. So what happens in independent standing position? In independent standing position, the child this child, he stand, but he stand with wide base of support due to balance problem, and he is in standing also wide base of great support, but he due to lack of trunk control, he just okay, he increased the lordosis. Okay, no, he increased the trunk flexion to prevent from falling. Okay, so here we have seen all this from the supine position, attitude of the limb, and the prone position, independent standing. Okay, supported standing. Next, we will move to the higher mental function. Higher mental function, we'll see the vision problem. Any vision problem is there or not? Any nystagmus is present or not? Okay, so how will you observe the vision? Okay, we can take a stimulus given by the light. Okay, so people will constricted and diluted in response to light. We have to see all these things. Okay, any visual tricking is there or not? Okay, if we given and fix the pen with my eyes, so okay, so when I do any movement with my fingers, and the visual tracking is there, and I am also moving with the pen, but we'll see how much the this visual tracking is present or not. We can see in horizontal direction, and we can see in vertical direction too. And speech, we have to see the vocalization is there or not, any monosyllabus, bisyllable. Okay, we have to ask all about things, any hearing hearing difficulty is there or not. Okay, how will you examine the any hearing difficulty is present or not? We have to make some noise. Okay, just we this thing. Okay, he will respond, he will blink his eyes. Okay, he will respond to sound. He can rotate his head towards the stimulus side. Okay, we can examine this high mental function this way. Any confusion is there right now? No? Okay, next we're coming to the most important part. This is primitive reflex. So what is primitive reflex? Primitive reflexes are behavioral motor responses that originate in the central nervous system and elicited amongst neurologically normal neonate and infant. It is normal. Primitive reflexes maturation by the central nervous system. With time period, primitive reflexes are matured and child is able to do head control, sitting balance, standing balance, walking balance due to maturation of the primitive reflex only. And it is in spinal level, brainstem, midbrain, automatic, and cortical. I'm not going to discuss about all the reflexes which is under in spinal level, brainstem, or midbrain, or automatic, or the cortical. Okay, it will be vast. What's the important part I can discuss? Okay, here the three levels of reflexive development is present. First one is epidel, that is predominance of primitive spinal and brainstem reflexes with motor development in prone or supine line. Okay, so three level is defined: epidel, quadrupedal, and bipedal. Due to maturation of the epidel, okay, the child will be in prone. Okay, child will be, maybe she's may wants to go from prone to supine or supine to prone. He can roll in bed. Okay, in quadrupedal, what happens? Due to maturation of the quadrupedal, the child can turn off her, assume crawling and sitting position. And due to maturation of the bipedal, and child can assume the starting position and can ambulant. Okay, so depending on the maturation of the reflexive level, we can the developmental of the standing balance, sitting balance will be occur. So spinal level reflexes are phasic movement reflex which coordinate muscle of the extremity in patterns of either total flexion or extension. Like flexor vital, extensor vital, any responses always will be either flexion or extension. For example, we can say palmar grasping. Okay, when we do the ulnar grasp, okay, there will be flexion. Okay, so spinal level reflex, it will be always flexion or extension. Response will be. And what happens in brainstem reflex? Brainstem reflex, in brainstem reflex, there will be STNR, ATNR. Okay, so it will in response to the sensing the position, we sense the position towards right or left, ATNR will be present. Okay, with cervical flexion, there will be flexion in the upper limb and extension of the lower limb. Okay, both ATNR and STNR will be the its response due to sensing the position. Baseline reflex will be present, and what happened in midbrain, writing reaction will be present due to midbrain level. Okay, so normal head and body relation is space as well in relations with if each other will be seen in midbrain reflex. So neck on body, body on body. Okay, then the automatic movement reaction are group of reflex in infant and young children which are not strictly writing reaction but which are reaction produced by the changes in the position of the head and hypothetically involve the semicircular canal and labyrinth or neck proprioceptor. Okay, so we have labyrinth and semicircular canal in our basal ganglia. Okay, what happens in there? So when we do any movement that, for example, Moro reflex, okay, this is also known as automatic movement reaction. And maturation of the cortical equilibrium reaction bring the individual into human bipedal stance. Okay, we stand and we walk due to maturation of the cortical equilibrium reaction. Okay, so we'll now see the developmental and functional evaluation in supine and prone developmental. Okay. Okay, in supine and prone developmental, we'll see the postural stability of the head. So how will we see the postural stability of the head in supine position? When the child is in supine position, okay, we'll see, examine the postural stability of the head by sing. Any midline activities there or not? Okay. Can the child lift his head from the bed? Okay. This will see the postural stability of the head. So how can we examine the postural stability of the shoulder girdle? Okay, we can do, does he do any reaching activity? Okay, we'll see the postural stability of the shoulder girdle. We see the postural stability of the pelvic girdle by breathing. Okay, can he do the breathing movement? Okay, and in normally up to 5 months of age, okay, or 6 months of age, what does the child do? The flexion of the hip, knee flexion, okay, and the kick to kick will be occur, okay, and toe to toe and foot to foot contact will be present, okay. They can shake the big toe, okay. So this all the activity is seen in supine development, and what happened in prone development, we'll see the postural stability of the head. So how will you check the postural stability of the head? You will see the head lifting, okay, and postural stability of the shoulder girdle, okay. Any does the child have a good control in forearm support, okay, and the extended arm, okay. We'll see all this in shoulder girdle postural stability. We'll see the pelvic girdle. Does the child can go the prone position to the pivot prone position, okay. So we'll see all this in developmental and functional evaluation. Next, we'll see the neuromuscular evaluation. We all know that this will check the muscle tone and measured, and with grading mass and superficial reflex, and we'll have to see the Babinski sign, and we have to see the deep tendon reflex, third range of motion, any contracture or any deformity is there or not. Gait examination also important part. So we ended up all the assessment part. Now we coming to the differential diagnosis. So how will you differentiate? So in the differential diagnosis, we'll see the history part, okay? Cerebral palsy, mental retardation, pervasive developmental disorder, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. In cerebral palsy, how will you differentiate it from other types of diagnosis? History will be often positive, yes, and behavioral substance will be colic, irritable, sleep problem will be there, okay, milestone, always it will be delayed, and physical examination not specific but delayed growth and development, and neurological movement, general movement definitely abnormal, tone will be increased or decreased according to the region of the site of the brain, and motor behavior patterns will be primitive, mainly persist beyond the normal, and postural delayed appeal. So we can differentiate all the diagnosis from the cerebral palsy from taking all this positive type. So there are few scales, all this available in net, but we are discussing about gross motor functional measure, okay. Now early diagnostics of cerebral palsy. So in spastic diplegic cerebral palsy, what happens in supine position? In normally symmetrical kicking of the both lower limb is present in normal cell, and what happens in cerebral palsy? There will be due to extensor spasticity, increasing extensor spasticity. There will be asymmetrical kicking of the lower limb, adduction and intrarotation of one leg, and one leg abducted and flexes more than others, and normally the normal baby up to 4 months of age, external rotation of the hips and is observed, but in cerebral palsy, extension of the legs becomes stronger. Adduction and internal rotation of the hip is mostly seen along with extension of the lower limb. So asymmetrical kicking will be there, okay. When asymmetrical kicking will be present, there will be semi-flex of the knee joint, okay, with adduction and internal rotation of the one leg. What happens in symmetrical kicking? You will kick, okay, symmetrical, one leg is kicking, one leg will be, okay, there, okay. So symmetrical kicking will be there in normal cell. So what happens in cerebral palsy cell? There will be asymmetrical, okay. Kicking may be lower limb kicking may be present, but with the adduction, internal rotation of one leg, and one leg abducted and flexes more in the others. So this difficulty is seen in spastic paraplegic cerebral palsy in supine position. So what happens in prone position? In prone position, normally lifting of head, the legs are flexed and abducted of the hip joint, okay. And what happens in cerebral palsy side, and the hip joint extended and adducted. In normally, independent movement of the ankle or the knee joint is present in normally. And what happens in cerebral palsy? Extension with all the joint, adduction and internal rotation and feet in always in plantar flexion. So what happens in prone position? Okay, so independent movement. Independent. What is independent movement? In normally he can do the ankle movement, knee joint movement, but what happens in cerebral palsy children? He cannot do the individual or independent movement. He will do the as a whole extension of all the joint, adduction and interrotation with feet in plantar flexion, but he cannot individually flex, okay, and extend all the joint, individual joint. So what happens when the child do the rolling? Okay, in normally there will be non-segmental rolling is present, and normally non-segmental rolling is present from birth to 4 months or 6 months of age. Non-segmental because it is non-segmental. So as a whole, he will roll from supine to sideline position. Okay, and after 5 to 6 months there will be segmental rolling. What is segmental rolling? When the baby do the movement of the head towards the right or left, the first will be the upper trunk will be rotated towards this side, left side, okay. Then we'll do the pelvis movement, hip movement, knee movement, and child will go to the supine position to the sideline. This is normally seen in normal baby after 6 months of age. Okay, so what happens in cerebral palsy? They can initiate rolling the head. Okay, if the child is in supine position, he wants to go in sideline position towards the left side. Okay, he'll do the movement of the head. Okay, he'll do the head movement. Okay, he can use his upper arm to go to the left position. Okay, left side position, but he cannot do the leg movement because due to the shift, extended and adducted and internal rotated. Due to the increase of extension spasticity, the child cannot do the go to the supine position to sideline to the right or left. And then in normal reciprocal creeping, pivot prone is there, pushing himself backward and swimming with reciprocal movement of the arms and legs will be seen in normal child. Okay, child in rolling. When the creeping in prone position, he just push back his pelvis and go to pivot prone. But this is not seen in cerebral palsy. So he is unable to push himself backward. There is lack of rotation of the trunk and abduction of the arms and legs. And what happens in sitting position? Normally, when the sitting progression is prop sitting. So what is prop sitting? When the child learns to sitting position, he will just give the support with the help of the arm. Okay, he will give the support and he will do the prop sitting. After that, he will the ring sitting. Okay, the both leg will be in this position, look like ring sitting. Okay, and after that half ring, the one leg will be abducted and one will be half ring. So this is half ring sitting. Okay, so this is the normal progression of the sitting. Okay, what happens in cerebral palsy? There is no balance in trunk. The legs always adducted and internally rotated to always plantar flex, and there is narrow base of support. So the child develop rounded back. Okay, here the child tries to get up from the bed, but he is unable to do this movement due to stiff his hip. Okay, due to stiff his hip joint adducted or internal rotate. Okay, he is unable to do the movement, and there is lack of rotation of the trunk. Okay, so when starting to sit, okay, there are no balance direction of the legs and pelvis, and child sits on sacrum. Okay, you can see this picture. Okay, child is sitting. Okay, but child is sitting with excessive trunk flexion. Okay, he needs also support, and child sit on sacrum, and excessive flexion of the spine also is there, which is compensated due to lack of hip flexion and arm supported backward in long sitting position. This all the sitting position will be developed by the spastic diplegic cerebral palsy. And in second stage, crawling, when he want to crawling, kneeling and standing. Okay, slide, learn to get up from the floor, get up on his knee, and W sitting also present. Okay, this is W sitting. Child always prefer to sit on the in between the two limbs. And crawling in total flexor. Yes, normally crawling, what happens? The child in crawling position, the normal one hand is go okay forward, the other will be the flexion and extension is there when we does crawling. But what happens in cerebral palsy children, due to the extensor spasticity, the crawling in total flexion. The child cannot do the extension of the extension of the leg, okay, and difficulty in side sitting. Why difficulty in side sitting? Side unable to do and they maintain the side sitting due to lack of rotation of the trunk. Okay, you can go to the side sitting. Okay, if we do the side sitting, there is the rotation of the trunk. Okay, but in cerebral palsy children, there is lack of rotation of the trunk, which may prevent him to go for side sitting. This is all about in sitting position, crawling, kneeling, and standing. Now you see the standing up. Normally, what happens when the child learns to stand up? First, he will go to the kneel, okay, high kneeling, then half kneeling, and after that he will stand up. So what happens in cerebral palsy? His the child pulls himself up with his arms straight onto his toes and then move his feet forwards towards the chair. Okay, he takes support. Okay, he takes support and he uses this extensor spasticity. Previously we have discussed about the good effect of spasticity, uh, spasticity on the cerebral palsy. This is the good effect he used. Okay, he used the extensor spasticity to standing. Okay, so this is all the standing up. To third step, that is standing and walking. Many children walk with one foot flat on the ground and other with toes. If the Philippus equinus deformity is there, the child will be obviously child will walk in on toes. Okay, after that they walk with both hip and knee in some degree of flexion, adduction, and internal rotation of the hip side, and it will be in intoing gait. Next will be toes down first to prevent him falling forward, and the standing and the walking based in the diaplegic cerebral palsy child is narrow, which make balance difficult or impossible. And he cannot abduct his leg and he cannot walk sideways. Okay, so he can somewhat he can with support he can do sideways, but without support and independent abduction is not possible at all. This is all about the and standing and walking, and is he standing with a lordosis to compensate the hip flexion. Okay, so what happens in this is all about the spastic diplegic cerebral palsy. We can recognize a spastic diplegic cerebral palsy by observing this type of symptoms. Now we move on to the severe spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy. Epilepsy will be present, hearing defect or auditory imperfection will be present. Okay, in supine opisthotonus, that is what is opisthotonus? That is will be he will be pushed back. He will push the cervical and then the extension will be there. So to get a complete head leg of head control will be present. Extended spine, shoulder retraction, adductor spasticity, and excessive extension of the legs will be present in severe spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy in supine position. There will be contraction of adductor group, maybe develop earlier, and there is ATNR is usually present, which prevent the child to go to the sideline position and doing any midline activity. And what happens in prone position? Child cannot lift his head and extend his spine and hip, and he may not even be able to turn his head to one side. He dislikes prone position for breathing difficulty, and he can sit unsupported, but back is very round. So what happens in less affected spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy? In first is we see the supine, prone, and sitting supported. There will be lack of head control. In supine position, leg will be abducted and flexed like normal baby, but there will be head leg will be present. Okay, hardly move his legs, and weak kicking will be present. And while flexing hip and knees on, dorsiflexion of ankle and plantar flexion of foot with extending hip and knees on, strong reaction of shoulder in supine position, ATNR is present, which prevent the child to do the midline activity. Due to present of activity, ATNR reflex child cannot do the midline activity. What happens in prone line? The tongue is flexed and shoulder will be in protected, arms are adducted and under the chest. There will be flexion of hip and knee, and TLR is present, which prevent him to sitting position. Passive extension is strongly restricted, and the sitting supported with rounded back, and spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy standing on toes with adductor leg. And what happens in adductor cerebral palsy? We'll see the high pitched cry, rolling of the eyes. Opisthotonus will be seen, refusal of food, hypertonia, and tightly clenched teeth. And the rhythmical tongue thrusting is an early features of adult cerebral palsy. Sucking and swelling features also. will present, and affected movement can be seen before or after the 6 month of age. So this is the all the clear pictures of early diagnosis of cerebral palsy. By the 3 month in normally when the child is in stomach, um, he can lift his head, but in cerebral palsy the head is stuck and he is unable to lift the head, and the shoulder is stuck under the chest. And 6 months, this is the proceeding, but cerebral palsy cannot do the sitting position. By 9 months, sit alone, reaches out, support itself when place standing. But in cerebral palsy children, there will be rounded back, there will be increase the trunk flexion, and cannot use the hands for playing. There will be stiffly and pointed toes. By 12 month pull to standing from, this is half kneeling to standing position. This is the normal appearance from the high kneeling to the standing position, but difficulty pulling to standing. See in cerebral palsy children, he used the extensor spasticity. By 18 months stand and walk alone, but in cerebral palsy one arm stiff and bent, tapped, walking on one side poor and standing balance. This is all about hemiplegic cerebral palsy. Okay, and normally we'll see the normal baby, and when it is floppy, you'll see the U-shaped. Okay, there will be feeding problem and difficulty in putting the diaper, and body stiffness is like a board. You'll unable to do any movement in hip joint or knee joint. There will be always the ankle will be in plantar flex position. So, so we diagnose the cerebral palsy. We have concluded the first part of the early diagnosis of the cerebral palsy. Now we move on to the principles of treatment. Okay, prepare the child for functional at an appropriate level. Incorporate the child's own activity into the treatment. Make tone more normal to make coordinate possible, and give the child a sensory experience of more normal movement. Okay, first one is prepare the child for functional at an appropriate level. Okay, appropriate level is nothing but what is the function of the child. Okay, you have to do, and we have to begin our treatment plan from the his level. Okay, incorporate the child role. So we have to respect the child delay. Okay, but and his interest. Okay, if he is activity active participation should be present, it will be good. Okay, so we'll mainly focus on positioning. In the what happens in supine position, there will be extensions due to increasing extension spasticity. There will be hip internal rotation and adductor. Okay, so we can position by placing the pillow under the knee joint. So it will mainly control the extensor spasticity, and it will the normalize the tone. So what can we do in bone position? You can in arm flex, because this both shoulders in stuck under the chest. So we will do the mobile weight bearing on arm to reduce the spasticity. Okay, and child with diplegia cerebral palsy, we can support in the knee, and we can do standing position. The child with adductor spasticity and adductor tightness, we can go for taking weight on the feet and pushing on the ground, facilitate extension. Okay, and we can do the mobile weight bearing activity to normalize the tone. Okay, this is all about the treatment planning for the spastic diplegic cerebral palsy or spastic type of cerebral palsy. We move on to the cerebral palsy. Normally, we see that cerebral palsy, there will be fluctuation of the tone. So, stabilizing the posture through the control, stimulation, and small range of movement. In cerebral palsy, continuously movement is present. So, we have to stimulate this all continuous movement, and weight bearing and composition to facilitate the co-contraction of the agonist and antagonist group of muscle, and to reduce the involuntary movement, and work for symmetry and midline orientation, and facilitation of the head and trunk control, and proximal fixation to give the child the possibility to control distal movement. Use of placing and holding to facilitate sustained tone and lead to better grading of movement. Facilitate of reaching and grasping. Here, there's always the head movement is present, so we have to stabilize the head in the midline, so that he can control his movement. Okay, we can stabilize on his pelvis to appropriate standing and in doing gait training. Okay, what happens in ataxic cerebral palsy will principle control postural tone by weight bearing and joint compression. In ataxic cerebral palsy there will be hypotonic. Okay, so we have to control the posture control by weight bearing and joint compression. Place and hold child in position to facilitate the co-contraction between the agonist and antagonist group of muscle. Encourage the child to take over so that you can release hold. Use mobile weight bearing and graded movement to change from one position to another. This is all about the balance training. Okay, we have to facilitate the balance and protective reaction. We have to guide the child to do the involuntary control. Okay, and we have to coordinate the group of muscle by various activity. Okay. So principle of treatment in children with hypotonia. There will be work for sustained co-contraction, help the child work against gravity, use weight bearing through all the limbs and in all positions, use sensory stimulation and joint compression, use vocalization, laughter to build up tone, because in hypotonia he cannot bear the weight. Okay, he cannot stand due to lack of muscle tone, and he cannot do any activity against the gravity. So we have to normalize the tone. So we have to treat very slowly and give the time child to respond and sustain position to give child sensory motor experience. Yes, we can tap over the shoulder to normalize the tone. Okay, so we can go for group play therapy. Okay, in group play therapy what happens? Okay, here the child, all child in kneel sitting position, kneel standing position, they lack of tongue control. Due to control the tongue control, we can facilitate, we can engage them with active participation of the child. They are doing in their own activity, it will very much effective for the treatment. Okay, we can involve all the child to this position, and we can always involve the child in group play activity, like ball kicking. Okay, and reaching and holding, catching. Okay, so we can do all the playing activity through the treatment. Okay, through the treatment we can engage the child in group play therapy. This is very effective. Okay, so lastly, I want to tell something patterns growth and development. So we have to give the normalize the tone. Okay, we have to go through all the principle, but we have to take a mind. Okay, that is the pattern of growth and development. So reflex to cortical development will be occur, and the development will be generalized to localized. So what is reflex to control? It is primitive reflex will be present, and it will after primitive reflex to cortical level treatment. Okay, cortical, with the cortical level maturation, the child will learn to standing. Okay, and walking, and generalizes to localized. First child will learn the generalized movement. Okay, any flexion of the shoulder joint, and this is general movement. But what is localized? Any flexion of the wrist joint, flexion of the elbow joint, this is all the localized movement. So we have to go from generalized to localized. So we have to go the cephalocaudal. First head control will be present, after that rolling will be present, after that sitting. Okay, after that crawling, after that only child will stand. Okay, so cephalocaudal direction we have to follow. We have to follow the medial to lateral. So the child will first learn the under grasping. Okay, then the flexor tone to extension tone for posture. If you remember my previous slide, in baby, when the baby born, after baby born, up to 2 hours of the baby born, there will be flexor tone. Okay, this is physiological flexor tone. So develop first in flexor tone, after that extensor tone will be developed. And the first will develop gross motor, after that we'll go to fine motor, and the extensor anti-gravity to flexor anti-gravity control. So first child will do the anti-gravity extensor movement. So child will learn to lift the head. Before in supine position lifting the head, child will learn in prone position lifting the head. This is extensor anti-gravity to flexor anti-gravity control. And weight bearing occurred on flexed extremity before on extended extremity. So child lined first on the forearm support, okay, with flexion of the elbow joint, he bear the weight and he can lift his head with flex of the elbow joint. After that, he gradually develop with the extended elbow. So weight bearing occurs first in flexed extremity, after that in extended extremity. So first will be open chain movement to closed chain movement. And first will be mobility, and we'll follow the mobility after the stability, and after the control the mobility, and we'll definitely will move the functional distal control. So we have ended all the details about the cerebral palsy. Any question is there, or you can ask?
If you have any questions, you can ask. Okay, it's very just long though, but it was like everything was there all on this presentation, right from beginning to end. So if you have any questions, you can ask now. Okay.
So there is no question.
Okay. Uh, okay, guys. Then if you don't have any questions, then okay. Fine. Thank you, Dr. Benita, for taking this effort and presenting. It was very interesting and just long though, but was like everything was there in the presentation, right from beginning to end. So I don't know how everyone is whether they have they have given full attention or not. But it's really good if you have given all full attention from beginning to end. So I thank you all the participants also who is still there, and it's really good.
Hello.
Hello, yeah. Even questions you
Hello.
can, yeah.
Hello, ma'am. Hello.
Yes, yes.
Yes, we can
I'm
hear
there.
you.
Ma'am, thank you so much for great information.
What?
Can I ask one question?
Yes,
Yeah, definitely.
Ma'am, can you repeat the Korea, athertoid, and dystonia differences again? Because
Okay.
some difference I can't focus on that
Okay,
portion.
okay. We'll do, definitely. Okay. So am I audible now? Am I audible?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
In this kinetic group of cerebral palsy, we'll see the fluctuating of tone. Okay. It may be hypertonic or it may be hypotonic. Okay. So low tone with rest and high tone with movement. And there will be low tone in proximally and high tone in distally. So what? Okay. This is all about. Okay. In dystonia, there will be muscle contraction with frequent twisting. And repetitive movement will be present, and there will be present abnormal posture. Okay, so if you ask a child with dystonic group of cerebral palsy to sit, okay, he will sit, he will do the he can maintain, okay, he can maintain this posture. But if you ask her to move from this position to that position, the muscle tone will be increased. In resting position, there is no muscle tone increase, okay, and after doing any movement or any initiation of movement, the muscle tone will be increased. So this is dystonia. And what happens in athletoid? In athletoid, there will be slow, continuous, and riding movement. Okay, he will always doing movement. Okay, he loves to do movement, but it is slow and continuous. And mostly the jaw extension movement is present in athletoid cerebral palsy. And what happens in Korea? In athletoid, there is slow, continuous, but in Korea, it looks like dancing movement. Okay, there will be brief and jerky random movement all the time, and the chorea differs from methatosis in the duration and continuity of the movement. Okay, you can see this picture. The child is in sitting position, resting position. Her tone is normal. Okay, her tone is low. But what happens when child in standing position? Her muscle tone will be high, adaptor spasticity will be high, and you may get confused with spastic diplegic cerebral palsy. As in spastic diplegic cerebral palsy, we mostly see scissoring gait. Okay, they'll increase adaptor spasticity. Okay, so due to increasing adaptor spasticity, mainly we see scissoring type of gait, but in resting position in dystonia, we'll see hypotonia, and with activity, it is hyperactive. And what happens in atherosclerotic cerebral palsy? There will be slow and small writing movement will be present on the hand. There is always jaw movement, and he likes to do movement all the time, but which is slow and continuous. But in Korea, what happens? He will do the jerky movement. Okay, he'll do the all the time. Korea means dancing. Okay, Korea cerebral palsy means you'll see the child with dancing. Okay, he like dancing. Okay, so dancing like cerebral palsy is Korea, and there will be in duration and continuity. If you see, there will be just the first movement. And atherosclerotic cerebral palsy, you see the slow rhythmic movement, and in Korea, you will see the first movement. So, any confusion is there right now?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, all the participants.
Great session, ma'am. Thank you for
Yes.
sharing your knowledge.
Thank you, everyone.
So may I leave now?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.